Hello once again, this is Bill Hayhurst from Telquest Tech Support. Today I'll be going over some IP Office Special Info. With Avaya's introduction of the 9.1 software, there's been some difficulties and confusion. First off, if your KSU was a PCS 14 or lower, you had to upgrade the KSU first, even though it was brand new. You had to upgrade it to a release 9.0 to free up memory inside the KSU to allow it to become a 9.1. This procedure was confusing and very time-consuming, could take up to 2 hours in the field. As a consequence of that, Telquest began upgrading the KSUs before they were shipped out, thus alleviating you of all that trouble of going through that work. When you receive a KSU, you may notice that the seal on the box was broken. That's normal since it was upgraded at Telquest, and they did have to open the box. So now, when you receive a brand new IP Office 500 V2 KSU, it should be ready to go with release 9.1. What you should do immediately is a factory default on the KSU to make sure everything is in order. You will find attached to this email that contained this video link instructions on how to factory default the KSU. Please read them carefully and thoroughly. It doesn't work the way you may think it works. The next thing that causes a problem when you try to connect to the system is right here. If you plug your computer directly into the KSU, you have a 50-50 chance of it working. And here's the reason why. Number one, the IP Office Basic Mode does not have a DHCP server in it. That means it does not give out IP addresses. So when you plug your computer directly into the KSU, your computer will get a fake 169 type of IP address. Now normally, addresses on different subnets cannot communicate with each other. However, in the manager software, there is applications that allow it to work in some cases. This has nothing to do with the IP Office. This has nothing to do with the software itself. It has to do with your computer and the chipset that are used for its processor. Now, I cannot tell you which chipsets do and which chipsets do not work. The only way you'll find out is if you try to connect to the system and it doesn't work and it fails. That's how you would determine that. So that's why I say you have a 50-50 chance. Maybe your computer hardware is good enough. Maybe your computer hardware isn't good enough. No one can tell until you try. So the direct connect method is not preferred. All right, as you can see, I've changed this configuration. What I've done, I've put a network router into the picture. In this case here, the network router will give an IP address to both the KSU and your computer, and as you can see, they're both on the same .2 subnet. A special point I'd like to make. On the IP Office KSU, if you simply plug it into the router, it will not pull an address. You must power the KSU down, plug it into the router, and then power it up. That's the only way that it will pull a valid IP address from the router. Your computer, for the most part, simply plug it into the router. Once that takes place, both devices will be on the same subnet and communications will be normal TCP, very simple communications between the two devices. Now, in the case where the customer does not have a router, or there's no room in the customer's router, or the customer says you cannot plug into their router, simply bring your own router along with you for programming purposes. Any old $20 Linksys router will work just fine, so be prepared when you go on the job. I would also like to point out that even if you do use the router method, oftentimes when you first try to connect to the IP Office, it will say connection failed, and you can click on the retry button. After trying several times, if you're still unable to connect, then you can call our tech support number and we can take a closer look at it with you. For now, this is Bill Hayhurst from Telquest Tech Support.